Your husband died? What a shame. But you better clean this house, or you are out on the street, screamed Jessica, my daughter-in-law, while I was on my knees on the floor with tears falling onto the tiles. My hands trembled as I held the dirty rag. Outside, I could hear the cars arriving for Arthur's funeral. My Arthur. And she had me here, like a slave, while everyone was saying their goodbyes to my husband. Clean that corner properly, mother-in-law. Don't leave any spots. I don't want people thinking this house is neglected. The tears would not stop falling. 43 years of marriage, 43 years of love, of laughter, of building a life together, and now I could not even go to his funeral. It was in that moment that I heard firm footsteps entering the house. I looked up and saw a tall, elegant man in an impeccable charcoal gray suit, silver hair combed back, a serious face, eyes that seemed capable of reading every secret. Jessica straightened up immediately. Mr. William, I am so glad you arrived. We are just leaving for the funeral. This is my mother-in-law. She was just finishing up some cleaning before the guests arrive after the service. The man, William, stared at me. Then he looked at the rag in my hands, the tears on my face, the dark gray dress I was wearing, wrinkled and stained with dirty water. Why are you crying, ma'am? He asked in a deep voice, speaking directly to me. Jessica intervened quickly. Oh, Mr. William, she is just very sensitive. You know how elderly people are. They get emotional about everything. We better get going. I don't want to be late. But William did not move. He kept looking at me, waiting for my answer. Something in his eyes made me speak. Something in the way he looked at me, with respect, with genuine interest, made me let out everything I had been holding in. My husband died 3 days ago, I whispered with a broken voice, and she won't let me go to his funeral. She has me here cleaning. She says if I don't obey, she is going to throw me out on the street. William's face changed completely, his jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed as he looked at Jessica. Is this true? He asked with a voice so cold that even I felt a chill. Jessica let out a nervous laugh. Mr. William, you don't understand. This woman is very dramatic. Obviously she can go to the funeral if she wants, but someone has to stay and watch the house. There are valuables here. He raised a hand, silencing her. What was your husband's name, ma'am? Arthur. Arthur Miller, I replied, wiping my tears with the back of my hand. William closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, there was something different in them. Pain, recognition, contained fury. He walked over to me and gently helped me stand up from the floor. He took the rag from my hands and let it drop to the ground. Ma'am, he said, looking me directly in the eyes, you are going to that funeral, and you are going to say goodbye to your husband as he deserves. Then he turned toward Jessica. His voice was like cutting ice. Everyone knew your mother-in-law's husband, except you, it seems. Arthur Miller was my older brother, my brother, whom I hadn't seen in 30 years, but whom I never stopped looking for. And now, allow me to explain what is going to happen with your job, your house, and your miserable life. Jessica turned pale. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Your brother? She finally managed to say. That is impossible. Arthur never mentioned having a brother. William took out his phone. He dialed a number. Lopez, cancel all my meetings for the day, and I need you to come to this address with the legal team. Now, he hung up and looked at Jessica with contempt. We were separated when we were children. Different adoptions, different cities. I spent years looking for him. Years. And when I finally found him 6 months ago, do you know what he asked me? That I not introduce myself to the family yet. That I wait for the right moment. He wanted to surprise everyone. He wanted it to be special. I covered my mouth with my hands. Arthur had a brother? Why did he never tell me? William continued, his voice getting harder. We spoke on the phone every week. He told me about his life. About you, Margaret. About how proud he was to have met you. About how happy he was by your side. His voice cracked a little. And he also told me about his daughter-in-law. About how she had changed in the last few months. About how she pressured him for money. About how she treated his wife poorly when he wasn't around. Jessica stepped back. That is a lie. I always treated everyone well. William took a step toward her. Then explained to me why my brother called me a week ago, worried, telling me that you had asked him to put the house in your name, that you pressured him saying it was to protect the family from taxes, that you cried and manipulated until he almost gave in. I did not know any of this. Arthur had never told me. Jessica fumbled for her purse nervously. Mr. William, I think there is a misunderstanding. I have to go to the funeral. We can talk about this later. You aren't going anywhere, William said, blocking her path. You are going to sit right there and wait for me. I am going to take Margaret to my brother's funeral. And when we return, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about your future. Or rather, the lack thereof. He turned to me and his expression softened. Margaret, may I drive you? We should go now. I nodded, unable to speak. The tears kept falling, but now they were different. There was something else besides the pain. There was hope. There was justice starting to show itself. But before leaving, William turned one last time toward Jessica. Oh, and one other thing. As of this moment, you are suspended from your position at my company, without pay, while we investigate certain financial irregularities that have come to my attention. What a coincidence that they started exactly when you began working with us a year ago, don't you think? Jessica collapsed onto the sofa, all her arrogance vanishing. We left the house, and as I walked toward William's elegant car, a question kept spinning in my head. What else didn't I know about the last months of Arthur's life? And what was I going to discover now? William's car was luxurious, with cream-colored leather seats and a smell of fine wood. I had never been in a vehicle like this. As he drove in silence toward the cemetery, I looked out the window without really seeing anything. My mind was elsewhere. In the last 3 months of Arthur's life, everything had started to change when Jessica got that job. That damned job at the technology company where, I now knew, William was the owner. What a cruel irony of fate. 3 months ago I was in the kitchen making lunch. Arthur arrived from the street with a strange expression. Worried. Tired. He sat at the table without saying a word. What happened, honey? I asked him, drying my hands on my apron. It's Jessica, he said finally. She came over today. She needs us to lend her $20,000. She says it's urgent, that if she doesn't pay a debt, they are going to repossess everything. $20,000? I almost dropped the plate I had in my hands. What does she need so much money for? Arthur shrugged. She didn't want to tell me. She just cried and cried. She said we were her only hope, that if we didn't help her, her life was ruined. I gave him the money, of course. What else could I do? She was our son's wife. Family. We took out the savings we had kept for emergencies and gave them to her. Jessica promised to pay it back in 3 months. She never did. 2 weeks later she came back. This time she needed $15,000 more, then $10,000, then another $8,000, always with tears, always with dramatic stories, always with promises to pay it back soon. Arthur began to look sick. He lost weight. He slept poorly. One night I found him in the study, with his head in his hands, surrounded by papers. We don't have anything left, Margaret, he told me with a broken voice. The savings are gone. The retirement account is empty, and Jessica now says she needs us to put the house up as collateral for a loan. She says it is the only way to save her business. What business? I asked, feeling fear run down my spine. I don't know. She won't give me details. She just cries and makes me feel like the worst father-in-law in the world if I don't help her. I tried to talk to her. I went to her apartment one day when I knew she would be alone. I knocked on the door. Jessica opened it with a glass of wine in her hand, perfect makeup, expensive clothes. She didn't look like someone in a financial crisis. Margaret, what a surprise, she said without inviting me in. Jessica, we need to talk about the money. Arthur is very stressed. We already gave you over $50,000. When are you going to pay it back? Her expression changed. The mask of the sweet daughter-in-law disappeared. Pay it back? She let out a cold laugh. That money was an investment in the future of this family. You two are old. What are you going to do with that much money? Take it to the grave? At least I am using it for something productive. I froze. Investment? Is that what she called stealing our life savings? Besides, she continued, looking at her nails with indifference, technically that house belongs as much to my husband as it does to you two. When Arthur is gone, who do you think is going to keep everything? So stop bothering me with nonsense about money. Consider it an advance on the inheritance. She slammed the door in my face. I stood there, shaking with rage and fear. When I got home, I told Arthur everything. He went pale. She can't be that cruel. She is the mother of our grandchildren. She is family. But I had seen the truth. Jessica was not family. She was a predator, and we were her prey. Arthur got worse in the following weeks. He started having terrible headaches, dizziness, nausea. I took him to the doctor 3 times. They always told him the same thing. Stress, high blood pressure. You need to rest. Jessica kept coming, kept asking, kept pressuring. One day she arrived with papers. I need you guys to sign this. It is just a formality. A life insurance policy where I am the beneficiary. Just in case something happens to you. So I can take care of everything. Arthur, weak and tired, almost signed. I snatched the paper from his hands. We are not signing anything, I told Jessica, staring her down. Not anymore, she smiled. That smile that I now recognized as pure evil. Fine, don't sign. But when Arthur has a health problem and needs expensive treatment, don't come crying asking for help, because I won't be there. She left, slamming the door. That night, Arthur couldn't sleep. He was sweating cold. Margaret, I'm scared, he told me in the darkness of the bedroom. I feel like something bad is going to happen. I feel like Jessica is planning something. I squeezed his hand. We aren't going to let her do anything to us. Tomorrow we are going to talk to a lawyer. We are going to protect what is ours. But tomorrow never came. The next morning, Arthur got up to take his medications. The ones he took for his blood pressure, the ones he took for his cholesterol. Jessica had insisted on buying them for the last month. She said she wanted to help, that she felt bad for all the stress she had caused. Why didn't I suspect anything? Why didn't I check those pills? Half an hour after taking the pills, Arthur collapsed in the kitchen. He fell like a sack of potatoes, eyes rolled back, foam at the mouth. I called the ambulance, screaming and crying. The paramedics arrived in 15 minutes. 15 minutes that were an eternity. 15 minutes in which I held my husband in my arms, begging him not to leave me. 15 minutes that marked the end of my life as I knew it. At the hospital, they tried to revive him for 40 minutes. I was outside, in the waiting room, praying and shaking. When the doctor came out with that expression on his face, I knew it was over. I am so sorry, ma'am. We did everything possible. It was a massive cardiac arrest. Sometimes it happens without warning. Without warning? Arthur was 68 years old, but he was healthy, active, strong. How could his heart simply stop? Jessica arrived at the hospital 30 minutes later, with dry eyes. Without a single tear, she sat next to me and took my hand with feigned compassion. What a tragedy, right, Margaret? But don't worry. I am going to take care of everything. The paperwork, the funeral, the house. You just rest. You are an elderly woman. Let me handle the important things. In that moment, I should have hit her. I should have thrown her out. I should have shouted the truth. But I was in shock, broken, lost, and she took advantage of every second of my weakness. The next 3 days were a blurry nightmare. Jessica took control of everything. She chose the cheapest coffin. She canceled the service at the church Arthur loved. She moved the funeral to an inconvenient time. And then, the morning of the burial, she forbade me from going. The car stopped. We had arrived at the cemetery. William turned off the engine and looked at me. Margaret, I am going to ask you a question, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Do you believe my brother's death was natural? The tears started to fall again. The question I had asked myself 1,000 times in the last 3 days was finally spoken aloud by someone else. No, I whispered. I don't believe so. But I don't have proof. I only have this horrible feeling that Jessica did something. Something terrible. William nodded slowly. Then we are going to find that proof. But first, we are going to say goodbye to Arthur as he deserves. Together, as family. We got out of the car. In the distance, I could see the crowd gathered around an open grave. My heart broke again, realizing that hole in the earth was where they were going to put my love, my life, my everything. William offered me his arm. We walked together toward the funeral. People turned to look at us, some with curiosity, others with compassion. And Jessica, standing next to the coffin in her black dress and her fake tears, saw us arrive, and her face transformed into pure terror. Jessica tried to block our path when we reached the group of mourners. She stepped between us and the coffin with her arms extended, as if she were the guardian of the funeral. "You cannot be here," she hissed, looking at William with barely contained hate. "This is a private moment for the family." William looked at her with an icy calm that was scarier than any scream. "Move. Now." Something in his voice made Jessica step back. The people around began to murmur. I could feel their curious gazes on us. On me, the widow arriving late to her own husband's funeral. On William, the elegant man nobody knew but who clearly had power. I approached the coffin. It was closed. I wouldn't even be able to see Arthur's face one last time. I put my trembling hand on the cold, smooth wood. "Goodbye, my love. Forgive me for not arriving on time. Forgive me for not protecting you." The tears fell uncontrollably. William stayed by my side, in silence, letting me cry. After a few minutes, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned and saw an older woman, perhaps my age, with gray hair pulled back in a bun. She had kind but sad eyes. "You must be Margaret," she said softly. "Arthur spoke a lot about you." "I am Susan. I was his neighbor when he lived on Maple Street, before marrying you. I knew him more than 40 years ago," Susan continued. "He was a good man, always helping everyone, always with a smile. It made me so sad to hear of his death. So sudden, right?" I nodded, unable to speak. Susan leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "I came to speak with you, but that woman," she pointed discreetly at Jessica, "wouldn't let me get close. She said you were too indisposed to receive visitors, that you didn't want to be bothered, but I needed to give you this." She pulled a yellowish envelope from her purse. "It is a letter. Arthur came to see me 2 weeks ago. He looked very bad, worried, nervous. He gave me this and told me that if something happened to him, I should give it to you. Only to you. No one else." I took the envelope with trembling hands. It had my name written in Arthur's handwriting. That handwriting I knew so well after 43 years. "What did it say?" asked William, looking at the envelope. "I don't know. I didn't open it." "It isn't for me," Susan replied. "But whatever it is, Arthur thought it was important. Important enough to make sure it reached your hands even after his death." Before I could open the envelope, I heard Jessica's shrill voice behind me. "What is that? Let me see. If it is something of Arthur's, I have a right to know. I am family." She tried to snatch the envelope from me, but William stopped her, grabbing her by the arm firmly. "You aren't going to touch anything that doesn't belong to you. Understood?" Jessica pulled away with a jerk. "You guys don't know who you are messing with. I have rights over everything that was Arthur's. I am his son's wife. I am the one who took care of him in his final days." "Took care of him?" The voice came out of me stronger than I expected. "You call robbing him of every cent he had taking care of him? Pressuring him until he got sick? Stopping me from being at his funeral?" The people around went silent. Everyone was looking at us now. Jessica turned red with rage. "She is delirious from grief," she said, addressing the crowd with a victim's voice. "The poor thing is very affected. She doesn't know what she is saying." But Susan stepped forward. "I know exactly what she is saying, and she is right. Arthur told me everything about you, miss, about how you manipulated him, about how you got money out of him with lies, about how you threatened him if he didn't do what you wanted." Jessica glared at her. "You are a nosy old woman who doesn't know anything." "I know more than you think," Susan replied without being intimidated. "I know that Arthur was planning to report you. I know he had spoken with a lawyer, and I know you found out about those plans. How convenient that he died right before being able to do it, right? The priest was trying to regain control, but nobody was paying attention to him. Everyone was focused on us." "That is a very serious accusation," said a male voice. A man of about 50 years approached. Gray suit, black tie, briefcase in hand. He looked like a lawyer. "I am Robert Vance. I was Arthur Miller's attorney, and I can confirm that Mr. Miller came to see me exactly 3 weeks ago." William straightened up. What was Mr. Miller looking for? Robert looked at Jessica before answering. He wanted to change his will. He wanted to ensure that his wife, Margaret, received everything. The house, the savings that remained, his belongings, everything. And specifically, he wanted to put in writing that his daughter-in-law, Jessica, would receive absolutely nothing. Jessica went pale. That is a lie. Arthur loved me. I was like a daughter to him. A daughter? Robert let out a dry laugh. Mr. Miller told me textually, that woman is a viper. She is going to try to keep everything when I die. I cannot allow it. Margaret would be left on the street. Did he sign that will? Asked William. Robert shook his head. We were going to sign it last week. We had an appointment scheduled. But Mr. Miller didn't arrive. When I tried to call him, his daughter-in-law answered the phone and told me Arthur was very busy, that he no longer needed my services, that she would take care of everything. Jessica backed away. I was only trying to protect him. You don't understand. He was confused. Senile. He didn't know what he was doing. Senile? I screamed, feeling the rage explode inside me. Arthur was perfectly fine until you started poisoning him with your manipulations. I don't like the word poison, said William slowly. But it is interesting that you use it, Margaret, because I also started wondering about that. He took out his phone and showed the screen. Here I have Arthur's medical records. They sent them to me this morning. It turns out that in his last blood tests, there were abnormally high levels of certain medications. Medications that were not in his original prescription. My heart skipped a beat. What are you saying? I am saying that someone was giving my brother medicines he shouldn't take. Medicines that, combined with his regular blood pressure medication, could cause exactly what they caused. A massive cardiac arrest. Jessica tried to run. Literally turned around and ran toward her car. But William made a signal, and two men in suits that I hadn't noticed before intercepted her. They held her by the arms while she screamed and kicked. Let me go! This is kidnapping! I am going to call the police! Go ahead. Call them, William said calmly. In fact, they are already on their way. I asked them to come. We have a lot to talk about regarding the suspicious death of my brother, and about the financial irregularities in your bank account. $65,000 deposited in the last 3 months. Money that matches exactly the amounts you stole from Arthur. How do you know that? Jessica stopped struggling, panic clear on her face. I own a technology company, Jessica. Did you seriously think I couldn't track financial transactions? You are an employee of mine. I have access to your payroll records, and, curiously, your extra deposits don't match your salary. So, where did that money come from? She didn't answer. She just looked at the ground, defeated. I opened the envelope Susan had given me. Inside was a letter written in Arthur's trembling handwriting. My eyes filled with tears reading the first lines. My beloved Margaret, if you are reading this, it is because something happened to me. And if something happened to me, it was Jessica's fault. She is poisoning me slowly. I know it. I can feel it. Every day I feel worse after taking the medicines she insists on giving me. I kept reading with my heart breaking. Arthur knew. He knew Jessica was killing him. And even so, he couldn't save himself. The letter continued with details, dates, symptoms, suspicions. And at the end, a revelation that left me breathless. I found documents in her purse. Jessica has a life insurance policy in my name that I never signed. She forged my signature. The policy is for $500,000, and she is the beneficiary. I looked up from the letter with trembling hands. $500,000. Jessica had forged a life insurance policy. She had planned Arthur's death for months. This wasn't just cruelty. It was premeditated murder. William gently took the letter from my hands and read it. His face hardened with every line. When he finished, he looked at Jessica with a hatred so intense she stepped back instinctively. $500,000, he said loudly so everyone could hear. You forged a life insurance policy in my brother's name. You poisoned him systematically for weeks. And then you came here to cry crocodile tears at his funeral while planning to collect the money. It's not true, screamed Jessica. That letter is fake. Arthur was delusional. He was sick and paranoid. Then explain this. William pulled an envelope from his jacket. This morning, while you were busy humiliating my sister-in-law, I went to your apartment with a court order, and we found very interesting things in your underwear drawer. He opened the envelope and pulled out several papers. A life insurance policy, receipts from an online pharmacy, and bottles of medication with labels in English. Digoxin, read William. A heart medication that in high doses can cause fatal arrhythmias. especially dangerous when combined with the beta blockers Arthur was taking for his blood pressure. Any doctor would tell you that. And it turns out you bought 3 bottles of this last month. The crowd gasped. Jessica shook her head frantically. I suffer from anxiety. Those medications are for me. Really? William smiled without humor. Because, according to your medical history, which I also have access to as your employer, you have never been diagnosed with any heart condition. So, why do you need digoxin? Jessica opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The trap was closing around her, and she knew it. It was then that I heard another voice. A female voice, high-pitched, feignedly worried. Oh my God! Jessica, what have you done? I turned and saw a woman of about 40 approaching. Dyed blonde hair, too much makeup, an emerald green dress completely inappropriate for a funeral. I recognized her vaguely. I had seen her a couple of times at home when she visited Jessica. Brenda? Said Jessica with eyes wide open. What are you doing here? Brenda put her hands to her chest with theatrical horror. I came to pay my respects, of course. He was such a good man. Poor Arthur. Her voice dripped false compassion. Although I must admit I am surprised by what I am hearing. Jessica, is all this true? Did you really poison him? Shut up, hissed Jessica. Don't say anything. But Brenda continued, now addressing William and me. I am Brenda, Jessica's sister-in-law, her husband's sister, and I must confess something that has been eating away at my conscience. Everyone was looking at her now. Brenda had that look of someone about to drop a bomb. 2 months ago, Jessica came to my house crying. She told me Arthur was harassing her, that he made her feel uncomfortable, that she was afraid to be alone with him. She asked me to help her find a way to protect herself. Protect herself? I repeated, feeling nausea rise in my throat. Brenda nodded with teary eyes. I suggested she talk to the police, to a lawyer, to do things right, but she said nobody would believe her. That Arthur was very loved in the neighborhood. That everyone would think she was lying to keep his money. This is an absolute lie, I said, feeling rage explode. Arthur would never harass anyone. He avoided her. He was afraid of her. Brenda looked at me with fake compassion. I know, Margaret. I know. Because after Jessica told me that story, I started to get suspicious. My sister-in-law has always been ambitious, manipulative, capable of anything for money. Jessica tried to lunge at Brenda, but the security men held her tighter. Traitor! I am going to kill you. See? Said Brenda, stepping back dramatically. That is how she really is. Violent, dangerous. That is why I decided to investigate on my own. She took out her phone and showed it. Here I have messages from Jessica. Messages where she asks me about poisons, about how to make a death look natural, about how to forge documents. Everything is here. William took the phone and began to read. His expression grew darker with every second. This is solid evidence, he said finally. With this and what we already have, Jessica is going to spend the rest of her life in prison. But something didn't add up for me. I looked at Brenda more closely. Her worried expression seemed too practiced, her tears too perfect. And the way she had appeared right at the exact moment to sink Jessica. Why did you keep these messages? I asked slowly. If you were really worried, why didn't you go to the police before? Brenda blinked. I was afraid. Jessica is my sister-in-law. I didn't want to ruin the family. Liar, spat Jessica. Tell them the truth, Brenda. Tell them you were the one who had the idea, that you got me the medications, that you forged the insurance policy because you work at the insurance company. Brenda's face changed. The mask of the Good Samaritan fell for a second, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. I don't know what you are talking about, she said, but her voice sounded less sure now. You are trying to blame me for your own crimes. I have proof, screamed Jessica. I recorded our conversations. I have emails. I have everything saved on my cloud because I knew someday you would try to betray me. Brenda went pale. You wouldn't record something like that. You would be just as guilty as me. Jessica let out a hysterical laugh. Guilty? I was going to be rich. We were going to be rich. That was the plan, remember? Split the insurance money 50-50. You helped me get rid of Arthur, and I gave you half. $250,000 for each of us. The people around were in total shock. The funeral had turned into a public confession of murder. But then, continued Jessica with venom in her voice, you started getting nervous, saying, maybe it wasn't a good idea, that maybe we should stop. And I knew you were going to betray me, that you were going to leave me alone with all the blame while you looked like the heroine who discovered the crime. Brenda backed away looking for an exit, but now there were more people blocking her path. Everyone wanted to hear. Everyone wanted to witness this madness. William made another signal, and two more people, a woman and a man dressed formally, approached. They were detectives. They had badges hanging from their belts. Ladies, said the detective with a firm voice, you are going to have to come with us. Both of you. We have a lot of questions to ask you. Jessica began to cry for real now. Real tears of desperation. I didn't want to kill him. I just wanted the money. I just wanted what I deserved after putting up with that family for years. Putting up with? I walked up to her with clenched fists. Putting up with a man who treated you like a daughter? Who gave you everything you asked for? Who got sick from stress trying to help you? He was an old fool, spat Jessica. Weak, easy to manipulate. And she pointed at Brenda, convinced me it would be easy, that no one would suspect, that old people die of heart attacks all the time. Brenda tried to run, but the female detective caught her in 3 steps. She threw her to the ground and cuffed her with professional and efficient movements. You have the right to remain silent, she began to shout, while Brenda screamed and cursed. The other detective was doing the same to Jessica. The scene was surreal. We were in a cemetery, at my husband's funeral, and 2 women were being arrested for his murder in front of his grave. Susan approached me and hugged me. Arthur is resting in peace now. He knows justice was done, but I didn't feel peace. I felt rage, pain, confusion. How had we reached this? How did I not realize what was happening in my own house? William put his hand on my shoulder. It is not your fault, Margaret. These women are professional predators. Arthur didn't have a chance against them, but at least he left enough clues for us to find the truth. The detectives took Jessica and Brenda away while they shouted accusations against each other, each one trying to save her own skin, blaming the other. It was pathetic and satisfying at the same time. The priest, who had been standing in silence during all the drama, finally cleared his throat. Can we continue with the service? We all looked at each other. The situation was so absurd that someone let out a nervous laugh. Then another person. And soon half of those present were laughing with that uncomfortable laughter that comes after trauma. Yes, I said finally. Please, let's continue. Arthur deserves a dignified funeral. The service continued, but nothing was normal anymore. The priest tried to read the traditional prayers, but people kept whispering, discussing what had just happened. I stood next to the coffin, supported by William on one side and Susan on the other, trying to process everything. My husband had been murdered. It wasn't a natural heart attack. It was planned, executed, celebrated by 2 women who only saw dollars where there should have been family. When they lowered the coffin into the earth, I felt part of me go with him. 43 years of marriage, 43 years of love, of laughter, of building a life together. And it all ended because Jessica wanted money she didn't even need. After the burial, people began to approach to give me their condolences. But now there was something different in their eyes. It wasn't just compassion anymore. It was also respect, admiration. I had unmasked my husband's killers at his own funeral. An older woman I didn't know took my hands. Her name was Barbara, she told me. I knew your husband from the market. He was such a kind man, always helping carry the bags for the older ladies. He spoke a lot about you, said you were the love of his life. The tears welled up again. Thank you, I whispered. Barbara continued, lowering her voice. And I want you to know something. I saw Jessica about a month ago at the pharmacy downtown. She was buying something, and when the pharmacist told her she needed a prescription, she got very angry. She said it was an emergency, that her father-in-law was very sick and needed the medication urgently. Do you remember what medication it was? Asked William, stepping closer. Barbara nodded. Yes, because it seemed strange to me. It was digoxin. I know because my late husband took it for his heart. And I remember thinking, how odd that a man with a heart condition needs that emergency medication and his family doesn't have a prescription. The pharmacist didn't sell it to her, of course. She left furious. And after that? I insisted. Barbara shrugged. I don't know. I suppose she got it somewhere else. There are online pharmacies that sell without prescriptions if you pay extra. William took out his notebook and wrote down Barbara's name and phone number. The detectives are going to want to talk to you. It is important testimony. When Barbara walked away, more people started coming up with similar stories. A neighbor who saw Jessica arguing with Arthur in the garden weeks ago. A lady from the store who witnessed Jessica yelling at him on the phone demanding money. A friend of Arthur's who noticed how he had lost weight and looked sick in the last months. Everyone had seen signs. Everyone had suspected something. But nobody said anything because who would want to accuse someone's daughter-in-law without concrete proof? When finally the cemetery began to empty out, only William, Susan, and I were left standing by the freshly covered grave. There was a temporary marker with Arthur's name. Soon they would replace it with a permanent one. One I would choose, one worthy of him. Margaret, said William, breaking the silence. We need to talk about practical matters. I know it isn't the ideal time, but there are things that must be resolved. I nodded without looking at him. I kept looking at the freshly moved earth, imagining Arthur down there, cold and alone. The house, continued William. Jessica has no right over it. Arthur left everything documented in papers we had stored. The house is completely in your name. Always was. Jessica lied when she said there was a mortgage. I looked up surprised. There is no mortgage? There is nothing. The house has been paid off for 15 years. Arthur showed it to me months ago when we started talking. He was proud of having given you a safe home. Jessica invented that debt to scare you, to control you. I felt a mix of relief and rage. More lies, more manipulation. There are also the savings, William continued. Well, what little is left of them. Jessica managed to take out almost everything, but there is an account Arthur opened years ago in his name exclusively. It has $32,000. He kept it secret precisely to protect you in case something happened. $32,000? I never knew about that account. Arthur was sharper than Jessica thought, Susan said with a sad smile. He knew you needed protection. He loved you so much he planned for your future even while they were poisoning him. And there is more, added William. The fake insurance policy Jessica made was never valid because she forged the signature, but it turns out Arthur had a real policy nobody knew about. From his previous job, one he never canceled, for $200,000, and you are the legitimate beneficiary. I felt dizzy with all this information. $200,000, the house debt-free, $32,000 in savings. I wasn't rich, but I wasn't on the street like Jessica had made me believe. Jessica lied to you about everything, William said firmly. She isolated you, scared you, made you feel vulnerable and without options, all to be able to control you. It is what abusers do. They destroy your confidence so you can't defend yourself. He was right. I had felt so lost, so helpless in the last few days, as if without Arthur I was nothing, as if I depended on Jessica's charity to survive. But that wasn't true. It never was. And now what happens? I asked finally. With Jessica and Brenda? Are they going to be prosecuted for premeditated murder? With Arthur's letter, the medications we found, the messages between them, the witnesses' testimonies, they have enough evidence to convict them, answered William. They are going to spend decades in prison, maybe their whole lives. Good, I said with a firmness that surprised me. Let them pay for what they did, but there is something else you need to know. William hesitated before continuing. When we reviewed Jessica's finances more deeply, we found something disturbing. She didn't spend all the money she stole from Arthur. What do you mean? She only spent about $15,000. The rest, the other $50,000, she transferred to an account in the Cayman Islands. An account linked to another person. Brenda? Asked Susan. No, someone else. William showed me his phone with a bank document. The name on the account is Michael Miller. Who is Michael Miller? I asked, confused. Wait, Michael, that is what we need to figure out, William said, frowning. Because if Jessica was sending money to someone else, it means there was a third accomplice. Someone who is still free. A shiver ran down my spine. A third accomplice? Who else was involved in Arthur's murder? Susan cleared her throat. I think I know who Michael is. We all looked at her. He is Jessica's husband. Your son, Susan said, looking at me with compassion. I have seen that name on documents. Arthur mentioned him to me once. Said his son almost never visited. That he was always traveling for work, that he barely saw him. My son, Michael. I hadn't seen him in 6 months. He always had excuses. He was always busy. He always promised to come soon, but never did. Could it be possible that he was also involved? The idea churned my stomach. My own son, the blood of my blood. Would he have helped murder his own father for money? We can't draw conclusions yet, said William, although his expression was somber. But we need to find him and talk to him. Do you know where he is now? I shook my head. He works for an oil company. He travels a lot. The last time we spoke was 3 weeks ago. He called me to say he was somewhere in Texas, that he would be back soon. 3 weeks, repeated William. Right when Arthur went to see the lawyer to change the will. Right when he started getting worse more rapidly. Do you think Jessica warned him? Asked Susan. That she told him Arthur was trying to cut him out of the inheritance, and that's why they accelerated the plan? It is a possibility, answered William. I need to make some calls, see if I can track Michael down. While William walked away talking on the phone, I stood staring at Arthur's grave. If our son was involved, if he had also betrayed his father for money, I don't know if I could handle it. Susan hugged me. Whatever they discover, you are going to be okay. You have friends now. You have William, who clearly is going to protect you, and you have the truth on your side. But the truth hurt. It hurt so much I almost wished to remain in ignorance. Almost. William returned 20 minutes later with a grave expression. I found Michael. He is in Houston. I asked him to come immediately. I told him it was urgent, that it had to do with his father's funeral. And what did he say? I asked, fearing the answer. He said he would take the first flight, that he would be here tomorrow morning. William paused. But there was something strange in his voice. He didn't sound surprised when I told him Arthur had died. He sounded prepared, as if he already knew. Fear settled deeper in my chest. My son, my only son, the baby I had carried, fed, raised with all my love. Could he really be involved in this? Margaret, William said, taking my hands. I know this is hard, but I need you to be strong a little longer. Tomorrow, when Michael arrives, we are going to confront him. We are going to get answers. And whatever the truth is, we are going to face it together. I nodded, even though inside I was crumbling. Susan suggested we go somewhere for coffee, to process everything that had happened. But I just wanted to go home. To my house. The house Arthur and I built together. The house Jessica had tried to steal from me. William insisted on driving me. During the ride, neither of us spoke much. I looked out the window, watching the familiar streets pass by. Everything looked the same, but everything had changed. I had changed. When we arrived at the house, there was something different. The front door was ajar. William signaled me to stay back and entered first. I followed him closely, my heart beating hard. The living room was destroyed. Sofa cushions thrown on the floor, drawers open, papers scattered everywhere. Someone had been looking for something. Hello? Called William with a strong voice. Is anyone here? Silence. We went through the whole house. Every room showed the same chaos. My bedroom, where I had slept with Arthur for so many years, was completely tossed. The mattress moved, the closet empty with all the clothes on the floor. The jewelry Arthur had given me over the years, gone. In Arthur's study it was worse. His desk had been forced open. Filing cabinets were open with documents thrown everywhere. The wall safe was open, empty. Jessica, I said with a trembling voice. It had to be her. Before going to the funeral. No, said William, examining the front door. This is recent, very recent. The splintered wood is still fresh. This happened while we were at the cemetery. Someone knew the house would be empty. Who? Who else would know? William took out his phone and started dialing. I am going to call the police. This is a burglary. But I have a theory of who it was. While William talked to the police, I walked to the kitchen. I needed water. I needed to sit down. I needed to breathe. It was there that I found it. A manila envelope on the kitchen table. It wasn't there this morning. Someone had left it deliberately. With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside were photos. Photos of Arthur and me. But they weren't normal photos. Someone had drawn red crosses over our faces. There were messages written with black marker. "This is just the beginning. Pay what you owe. The old man already paid. Now it is your turn." I screamed. I couldn't help it. William ran to the kitchen and took the envelope from my hands. "Damn it," he said, reading the threats. "This is bigger than we thought. It isn't just Jessica and Brenda. There is someone else. Someone dangerous." The police arrived 30 minutes later. 2 officers took photos, asked questions, checked the house. William showed them the envelope with the threats. He told them about Jessica, about Brenda, about Michael, and the money transferred to the Cayman Islands. The officers exchanged significant glances. "Ma'am," said one of them, "we are going to put surveillance on your house tonight. You cannot stay alone. Do you have somewhere to go?" "She can stay with me," offered William immediately. "I have plenty of room and 24-hour security. I didn't want to leave my house. I didn't want these criminals to drive me out of my own home. But I wasn't stupid either. Someone had been here. Someone had threatened me, and that someone could return." We packed some things. Clothes, toiletries, the few jewels they hadn't stolen. While doing so, I found something under my pillow. Another envelope. This one was smaller, with my name written in Arthur's handwriting. I opened it with trembling fingers. It was a short letter. "My beloved Margaret, if you are reading this, it is because I didn't manage to protect you in time. There are things I didn't tell you, secrets I kept so as not to worry you, but now you must know the truth. Michael has debts, gambling debts. He owes more than $200,000 to very dangerous people. He came to me 4 months ago asking for help. I gave him what I could, but it wasn't enough. Then he met Jessica, and she offered him a solution that I rejected when they proposed it to me. I suspect that is why I am now in danger. Be careful with our son. He is no longer the boy we raised. He has become a stranger, one capable of anything. I love you, always. Arthur." Tears ran down my cheeks as I passed the letter to William. He read it and his expression hardened even more. $200,000 in gambling debts. That is why Jessica made the fake insurance policy for $500,000. Split between the 3, Michael, Jessica, and Brenda. Enough to pay the debts and have extra. "And the solution Arthur rejected?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. "Killing him and collecting the insurance." William put the letter away carefully. Arthur refused to be part of the plan. So they turned him into the victim. My son. My own son had participated in the murder of his father. For money, for gambling debts, for greed. I couldn't process this. It was too much pain, too much betrayal. "Mrs. Miller," said one of the police officers approaching, "we found something in the back garden. You should come see this." We all went out. In the garden, next to the rose bush Arthur had planted for our 40th anniversary, was a freshly dug hole. And in that hole, partially buried, was a suitcase. The police pulled it out and opened it. Inside were bundles of bills, thousands and thousands of dollars. There were also documents, fake passports with photos of Jessica and Michael, plane tickets to the Cayman Islands, dated for yesterday. They were going to flee, I said, feeling nausea. They were going to kill Arthur, collect the insurance, and flee the country. "And leave you here to deal with the consequences," added William with contained fury. "They probably were going to make you look like an accomplice. That is why Jessica kept you away from the funeral. That is why she isolated you. They wanted you to look suspicious." The police counted the money. There was almost $80,000 in cash, probably part of what Jessica had stolen from Arthur over months. "This is evidence," said the officer. "We are taking it to the station. But ma'am, I need you to understand something. You are in real danger. Whoever left that envelope with the threats knows where you live. And if Michael is involved with dangerous people, illegal loan sharks or worse, then they aren't going to stop until they recover what they consider theirs." "What they consider theirs?" I asked, confused. "Arthur is already dead. But the fake insurance policy was never collected," explained William. "And the real policy is going to go to you. $200,000 that Michael probably already promised to his creditors. If he doesn't pay it, they are going to kill him. And if he can't pay it, they are going to come for you. So they wanted to kill me too. They wanted me to die so my son could inherit and pay his debts. It wasn't just Arthur's murder. It was the murder of both of us. A plan to eliminate his own parents for money. I sat on the porch steps, unable to stand. My family, my son, everything had been a lie. Everything had been an act while they planned to destroy us. William sat next to me and put his arm around my shoulders. I am not going to let anything happen to you, I promise. Arthur was my brother. You are my family now, and I protect my family. That night, I stayed at William's house. It was an elegant mansion on the outskirts of the city, with perfectly manicured gardens and a security system that looked like something out of a movie. Guards at the entrance, cameras everywhere, electric gates. I felt like a prisoner, but at least a safe prisoner. William showed me a guest room that was bigger than my living room and kitchen combined. King-size bed with ivory sheets, private bathroom with a whirlpool tub, view of the illuminated garden. Everything was perfect. Everything was beautiful, and I felt completely out of place. Rest, William said from the door. Tomorrow will be a difficult day. Michael arrives at 9 in the morning. We are going to be ready for him. Ready how? I asked, sitting on the bed. The detectives are going to be here. Also a lawyer. And me. We are going to confront him with everything. The money transfers, the gambling debts, the connection with Jessica and Brenda. He won't be able to lie when we put all the evidence in front of him. I nodded, not knowing what else to say. William closed the door, and I was left alone. I tried to sleep, but it was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Michael's face when he was a child. His first steps, his first day of school, his graduation. All those beautiful moments now stained with the horrible truth of what he had become. At 3 in the morning, I gave up. I went down to the kitchen looking for water. I found William seated at the counter with a glass of whiskey in his hand, looking at papers scattered on the marble. Can't sleep either, he said without looking up. I sat next to him. I can't stop thinking about Michael. Where did we fail? What did we do wrong for him to turn into this? William took a sip of his whiskey. It isn't your fault. Some people simply choose the easy path. They choose greed over family, money over love. Do you have children? I asked. He shook his head. I never had time. I built my company from scratch. I worked day and night for 30 years. And when I finally had success, money, everything that supposedly matters, I realized I was alone. I started looking for Arthur 10 years ago. I hired private investigators, checked thousands of records. And when I finally found him 6 months ago, it was the happiest day of my life. His voice cracked a little. We were going to do so many things together. We were going to make up for lost time. We had plans to travel, to really get to know each other, to be real brothers, and now he is dead. Murdered by people who claim to love him. I am sorry, I whispered. I am sorry you didn't have more time with him. William looked at me with shiny eyes. But I had 6 months. 6 months of phone conversations, of sharing stories, of laughing together. Some brothers have a whole life and never really connect. I had 6 months of true brotherhood, and that is more than many have. We stayed in silence for a moment. Then William pushed the papers toward me. I found something else this afternoon. I called some contacts in the gambling industry. Michael doesn't just owe money. He is on a blacklist. They kicked him out of 3 casinos for cheating. He tried to scam dangerous people. Scam? I repeated, feeling the weight in my chest get heavier. Marked cards. Loaded dice. He works with a ring of professional scammers. He isn't a gambling addict with bad luck. He is a criminal who uses gambling to steal. My son was a criminal, not a man with a problem, not someone who needed help. He was a conscious scammer who chose to steal, manipulate, destroy. And there is more, continued William, taking out a photo. This is Frank Russo. He is the man Michael owes the bulk of the money to. $150,000 exactly. The photo showed a man of about 40, bald, tattoos on his neck, scar on his cheek, dead eyes. He looked exactly like the type of person who could kill without blinking. Frank is known for lending money to desperate gamblers with criminal interest rates. When they don't pay, he or his people make them disappear. Simple, efficient, no witnesses. And Michael owes money to this man? Owed. Past tense. Because 3 days ago, after Arthur's death, Michael paid him $50,000 on account. William showed me a bank record, direct electronic transfer, From Michael's account to a shell company that is a front for Frank. $50,000. Exactly what Jessica had stolen from Arthur's savings. So the plan was real, I said, feeling nausea. They killed Arthur, stole his money. They were going to collect the insurance and flee the country after paying the debts. Exactly. But they made mistakes. They left evidence, and they didn't count on my existence. They didn't know Arthur had a brother who was going to investigate his death. Suddenly, William's phone rang. It was 3:30 in the morning. Nobody calls at that hour with good news. William answered, putting it on speaker. Mr. Miller. It was the voice of one of the detectives. I am Detective Vance. We have a situation. Jessica and Brenda were attacked in their cell an hour ago. Attacked? By who? By other inmates. Apparently the news of why they are arrested leaked. Murder, poisoning, conspiracy. The other prisoners didn't take well that they killed an old man for money. Are they alive? Asked William. Yes, but they are in the prison hospital. Jessica has a broken rib and multiple contusions. Brenda is worse. They broke her nose and she has a concussion. The detective paused. But that isn't the important part. The important part is that Jessica is talking. She is singing like a bird. She wants a deal. She says she has information about everything. Names, dates, plans, and she is willing to testify against everyone if they reduce her sentence. Against everyone. I repeated, including Michael? Especially Michael. She says he was the brain of the whole operation, that he convinced her to participate, that he got the medications through his criminal contacts, that he planned every detail. Jessica says she was just a tool, that Michael manipulated her just like he manipulated Arthur. And you believe her? Asked William. We are verifying her story, but she has proof. Emails, text messages, recordings of phone conversations where Michael explains the whole plan. Apparently she recorded everything as insurance in case something went wrong. Of course she recorded it. Criminals always mistrust each other. There is something else, continued the detective. Frank Russo is in the city. They saw him 2 hours ago at the airport, and he has company. 3 men, all with violent records. We believe they are coming for Michael, and possibly for Mrs. Miller. William stood up immediately. I am going to reinforce security. Nobody enters without my authorization. We already alerted all patrol units in your zone. But, Mr. Miller, these are professionals. If they really want to get in, they are going to find a way. Then let them try, said William with a cold voice that gave me chills. This house has better security measures than a bank, and I am not going to allow them to hurt my family. He hung up and looked at me. Margaret, I need you to stay in your room. Lock the door. Do not open it for anyone except me. Understood? I nodded, but I was afraid. Real fear. Frank and his men were coming for me. They were coming to finish what Michael had started, to eliminate the last obstacle between them and the insurance money. William made several calls. Additional guards, police on alert, security systems to the max. We converted the mansion into a fortress. But something told me it wouldn't be enough. Something told me that tonight everything was going to explode. I went up to my room as William had ordered. I locked the door. I pushed a chair against it for extra security. I sat on the bed with the phone in my hand, ready to call 911 if necessary. The hours passed slowly. 4 in the morning, 5, 6. The sun was starting to come up. Maybe Frank wouldn't come. Maybe the detective was wrong. Then I heard the first shot, then another, and another. Screams outside, alarm sounding, the sound of glass breaking, footsteps running down the hallway, more shots. I threw myself on the floor and crawled under the bed. My heart beat so hard I thought it would come out of my chest. Tears ran down my face. I prayed. I prayed like I hadn't prayed in years. The door to my room shook. Someone was trying to kick it in. 1, 2, 3 times. The wood began to splinter. The door gave way with a horrible crack. From under the bed I could see black boots entering the room. 2 pairs. Heavy, threatening. My breathing stopped. I tried to make myself invisible, smaller, non-existent. Where is she? Said a deep voice with a distinct accent. She isn't here, replied another voice. Check the bathroom. I heard footsteps moving through the room. Drawers opening, the closet being checked, the sound of the bathroom door opening violently. Damn it. She is hiding somewhere. One of the men approached the bed. I saw his boots stopping inches from my face. Then he crouched down. Our eyes met. It was a young man, maybe 30 years old, with a scar on his eyebrow. He smiled, showing gold teeth. "Here you are, Grandma." He dragged me from under the bed, grabbing me by the arm. I screamed, but he covered my mouth with his enormous hand. He smelled of tobacco and sweat. The other man, bigger, bald, with tattoos on his arms, approached. "Is it her?" asked the bald one. "Has to be. She's the only old lady in this house." They lifted me from the floor without any delicacy. My feet barely touched the ground. I tried to scream again, but the first man's hand pressed harder over my mouth. "Frank wants to talk to you, lady," said the bald one, looking at me with cold eyes. "He says your son owes him money. A lot of money. And since it seems the coward Michael is hiding, you are going to pay for him." I tried to shake my head. I had nothing to do with my son's debts, but they didn't want to hear explanations. They started dragging me toward the door. I fought, kicked, tried to bite the hand of the one covering my mouth, but they were too strong, too professional. This wasn't the first time they had kidnapped someone. When we reached the hallway, I saw the chaos. 2 of William's guards were on the floor, unconscious or worse. There was blood on the walls, broken glass everywhere. The alarms kept sounding, but nobody came to help. "Where is William?" I thought desperately. Was he dead? Wounded? Had they captured him too? We went down the stairs. In the main hall there was more destruction, overturned furniture, fallen paintings, and there, in the middle of the chaos, was a man who could only be Frank Russo. He was shorter than I expected, maybe 5'7", but his presence filled the room. Immaculate black suit, gold rings on every finger. Watch that probably cost more than my house, but it was his face that was most scary. Neutral expression, dead eyes. The face of someone who had seen and done horrible things so many times he no longer felt anything. "Mrs. Margaret Miller," he said with a soft voice, almost polite. "Finally we meet. Your son has spoken a lot about you." The man with gold teeth let go of my mouth, but kept holding my arms. "I beg you," I managed to say with a trembling voice. "I have nothing to do with my son's debts. I don't know anything about that." Frank smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Oh, but you do have to do with it, ma'am, because your son promised me money. $200,000 specifically. Money from your late husband's life insurance. Money that now, thanks to certain legal complications, he isn't going to be able to collect." He walked in circles around me like a shark. So I thought, if Michael can't pay, who can? And the answer is obvious. You, the widow, the legitimate beneficiary of the insurance. "I am not going to give you a single cent," I said, finding courage I didn't know I had. "My husband died because of that money, because of my son's greed. I am not going to reward the murderers." Frank stopped in front of me. His expression didn't change, but something dangerous shone in his eyes. "Ma'am, I believe you don't understand the situation. I am not asking you for the money. I am demanding it. And if you don't cooperate, well, let's say there are ways to change your mind." He made a signal, and the bald man pulled out a knife. The blade shone under the living room lights. My heart beat so hard I thought it would explode. But before they could do anything, I heard shots. Many shots. From outside the house. Screams. The sound of sirens approaching. Frank's men exchanged nervous glances. "What the hell?" said the one with the gold teeth. Frank took out his phone and dialed. "What is happening out there?" He listened to the answer, and his face tensed. "The police. It's at least 10 cruisers. They surrounded us." "Impossible," he grunted. "We had surveillance. Nobody could have called them." "Someone did," replied a voice from the stairs. It was William. He had blood on his shirt, but he was standing, alive, pointing a gun at them. I did. 20 minutes ago, when the first alarm tripped, Frank looked at him with disdain. "You are a dead man, Miller." "Maybe," replied William calmly. "But you guys definitely are. The police have orders to shoot, to kill, if you try to leave with hostages. So you have 2 options. Surrender now or die here. You choose." The one with the gold teeth moved his weapon toward William, but before he could shoot, the windows exploded. Dozens of police officers entered from everywhere, Rifles pointed. Shouts of, "Get on the ground! Drop your weapons, now!" Everything happened in seconds. Frank's men tried to resist, but they were outnumbered. Shots, screams. One of them fell, then another. The bald one threw his knife and raised his hands. The one with the gold teeth did the same, blood running from his shoulder where a bullet had hit him. Frank let me go and tried to run toward the back of the house, but William shot him in the leg. He fell screaming and cursing. In seconds, the police had him face down with handcuffs on his wrists. I let myself fall to the floor, shaking, crying, unable to process that I had survived. William ran toward me and helped me stand up. "Are you hurt?" he asked, checking me. I shook my head. "I am fine, but you are bleeding. It is just a scratch. I will be fine. The important thing is that you are safe." The paramedics entered and started tending to the wounded. Police everywhere taking photos, collecting evidence, arresting the criminals. It was chaos, but controlled chaos. Detective Vance approached us. "Mrs. Miller, I am sorry you had to go through this, but you are lucky." Mr. Miller acted fast. If he hadn't alerted us in time, this could have ended very differently. I looked at William with infinite gratitude. He just nodded, uncomfortable with the attention. "There is something else you should know," continued the detective. "We arrested Michael an hour ago at the airport. He was trying to flee to Mexico with a fake passport and almost $100,000 in cash. My son, arrested. Fleeing like a coward while sending assassins after his own mother." "Where is he now?" asked William. "In custody. They are interrogating him, and he is talking, confessing everything. Apparently he thought he could make a deal if he turned everyone else in. He gave us names, bank accounts, the whole plan." "I want to see him," I said suddenly. Everyone looked at me surprised. "I want to see my son. I want to hear from his mouth why he did this." "Mrs. Miller," said the detective doubtfully, "I don't know if that is a good idea. He is very agitated, saying horrible things, blaming everyone but himself. I don't care. I have a right to see him, to hear him, to tell him what I think of him." William took my hand. "If that is what you want, I am going with you. You aren't going to be alone." 2 hours later, we were at the police station. They took me to an interrogation room. Michael was sitting on the other side of a metal table, handcuffed, with a black eye and scratches on his face. Apparently, he hadn't surrendered easily. When he saw me enter, his expression changed. First surprise, then something that could have been shame, but quickly it transformed into anger. "Mom," he said with a hard voice, "good thing you are alive, although you ruined everything. If you had died like you were supposed to, I could have collected the inheritance and solved this problem." I sat in front of him, looking at him as if he were a stranger, because he was. This man with cold eyes and black heart wasn't my son, not the boy I had raised. "How could you?" I whispered. "How could you kill your own father? How could you plan my death?" He shrugged. "It was just business. Mom, Dad was going to die soon anyway. He was old, sick. What difference does it make if he died a little earlier? At least his death served something useful, something useful." That is what he called the murder of his father. To pay his gambling debts, to save his miserable life. "Your father loved you," I said with tears running down my cheeks. "He would have done anything for you. And you killed him." "He loved me so much he left me with debts of $200,000, spat Michael. "He loved me so much he refused to help me when I needed it most. Said I had to learn responsibility, that I had to face the consequences of my actions. Well, these are his consequences." I stood up from the chair, feeling like something broke definitely inside me. The last piece of hope that my son had even a shred of humanity. There was nothing left. "You aren't my son," I said with a firm voice. "My son died a long time ago. You are just a stranger, a criminal, a murderer, and I hope you spend the rest of your miserable life rotting in a cell." Michael let out a bitter laugh. "Sure, Mom, disown your only son. But when I am free, and I am going to get free because I have good lawyers, you are going to regret it. You are going to come crawling asking for forgiveness, like you always did." "Never," I replied. "I am never going to forgive you, and you are never going to walk free. The evidence is overwhelming. Jessica, Brenda, Frank, everyone is testifying against you. You are going to spend the next 30 years in prison. Minimum." His smile disappeared. We'll see. I left that room feeling a weight off my chest. I had said everything I needed to say. I had closed that chapter of my life. Michael was no longer my responsibility, no longer my worry. He was the justice system's problem now. William was waiting for me outside with coffee. "How do you feel?" "Liberated," I replied, surprising myself. For the first time in months, I feel free. The following days were a whirlwind. Trials, testimonies, newspapers covering the case. "Murder ring for life insurance dismantled," said the headlines. "Son plans parents' death for gambling debts," said others. Jessica received 25 years for second-degree murder in exchange for her testimony. Brenda received 20 years for complicity. Frank Russo got 30 years for attempted murder, extortion, and other charges. His men received similar sentences. And Michael, my son, he received life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Premeditated murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, forgery. The list was endless. The judge said he had never seen a case of family betrayal so heinous, that Michael was a danger to society and deserved to spend the rest of his life paying for his crimes. When they read the sentence, Michael looked at me from his place, expecting what? I don't know. Tears? Pleas? That I asked for clemency? I did none of that. I just looked back at him with indifference. He had chosen his path. Now, he would live with the consequences. 3 months after Arthur's funeral, I finally had a day of peace. William had helped me renovate the house. New locks, updated security system, fresh paint on the walls. It was like erasing Jessica's fingerprints and all the horror she had brought. I was in the garden planting new flowers next to Arthur's rosebush when Susan came to visit me. She brought tres leches cake, my favorite. "You look good," she said, sitting on the garden bench. "Stronger, more at peace." "I feel different," I admitted, as if I had passed through fire and came out the other side, burned but not destroyed. "Arthur would be proud of you, of how you handled everything, of how you stayed strong." The tears came, but they were different now. They weren't tears of desperation, but of memory, of love, of gratitude for having had 43 years with a wonderful man. The life insurance was finally processed, $200,000 deposited in my account. Money stained with blood, money that had cost Arthur's life. I didn't want it. I didn't need it. But William convinced me to accept it. "It is his legitimate money," he said. "Arthur paid those premiums for years, precisely to protect you. Use it, live well, do something good with it, in memory of my brother." So I decided. I donated $100,000 to a rehab center for gambling addicts, to help people like Michael before they reach the point of no return. The other $100,000 I divided among organizations that helped victims of family and elder abuse. People like me, who had been manipulated and mistreated by those who supposedly loved them. William visited me every week. We had become close, real family. He told me stories of when he and Arthur were children, before being separated. I told him about the years I had spent with his brother. In a way, we kept Arthur's memory alive together. One day, 6 months after the funeral, William arrived with a large box. "I have something for you," he said with a mysterious smile. Inside the box was a portrait. A beautiful oil painting of Arthur and William together, painted from photos I had provided. It showed them smiling, with arms around each other's shoulders. Brothers, finally reunited, even if it was only in art. I cried when I saw it. It is perfect. We hung the portrait over the fireplace in the living room. A reminder that although evil tried to destroy this family, love was stronger in the end. Whenever I looked at it, I felt peace. Arthur was in a better place now. He no longer suffered. He was no longer a victim of others' greed. He was free. Robert, the lawyer, came one afternoon with final documents. "Everything is in order, Mrs. Miller. The house is completely in your name. No debts, no claims. The savings we recovered from Jessica's accounts are also yours. In total, you have around $120,000 in liquid assets besides the property." I had never had that much money. I had never been so independent. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. "And what are you going to do now?" asked Robert, putting away the papers. "Live," I replied with a smile. "Simply live." And that is what I did. I took painting classes. I had always wanted to learn, but never had time. I joined a book club at the library. I made new friends, women my age, who had also gone through losses and tragedies, but who kept going with grace and strength. Susan and I became inseparable. We went to the market together, to the movies, to have coffee. She introduced me to her group of friends, and soon I had a whole community of support, people I cared about and who cared about me. Chosen family, not by blood. 1 year after Arthur's death, I did something I never thought I would do. I went back to the cemetery. This time, without fear, without overwhelming pain, just with fresh flowers and a heart at peace. "Hello, my love," I said, kneeling next to his headstone. I had ordered it made of white marble with gold letters. Worthy of him. "Sorry I haven't come sooner. I needed time to heal, to process everything." I told him about the trial, about the sentences, about how William and I had become family, about my new life, about how, although I missed him every day, I was okay. I was surviving. I was thriving even. "You did well leaving those letters," I continued, "in documenting everything. Without those clues, Jessica and Michael might have gone unpunished. Thank you for protecting me even after your death. Thank you for loving me so much." A soft breeze blew, moving the flowers I had brought. I liked to think it was Arthur telling me he heard me, that he was proud, that it was time to move on. When I stood up to leave, I saw William waiting by his car. It had become a ritual. Every anniversary, every important date, we came together to visit Arthur. Two people united by love for a man who was no longer here, but whose legacy lived in us. "Ready?" he asked when I approached. "Ready." We drove back in comfortable silence. We no longer needed to fill every moment with words. Simply being present was enough. That night, alone in my house, I sat in the armchair where Arthur used to read the newspaper. I looked at the portrait over the fireplace, the brothers smiling, united, victorious over the evil that had tried to separate them. I learned something from all this. I learned that family isn't always the people who share your blood. Sometimes it is the people who choose to stay when everything falls apart. People like William, like Susan, like Robert and Barbara, and everyone who supported me when I needed it most. I learned that true love leaves tracks even after death, that good people like Arthur never really abandon us. They live in our memories, in our actions, in the choices we make every day to honor their memory. And I learned that justice, although sometimes it takes time, eventually arrives, that the truth always comes to light, that evil can win battles, but never wins the war. Jessica, Brenda, Michael, and Frank paid for their crimes. I recovered my life. And although the price was high, although I lost the love of my life and the son I thought I knew, I gained something more valuable. I gained strength, independence, self-respect, freedom. I am Margaret. I am 67 years old. I am a widow. I am a survivor. I am stronger than I ever thought I could be. And my story doesn't end in tragedy. It ends in triumph, in renewal, in the living proof that even in our darkest moments, when everything seems lost, there is still light, there is still hope, there is still life to live. And that, in the end, is the only thing that really matters.